Welcome to Dakota Growing. I'm Kelsey Deckert, your horticulture agent here in Burleigh County, joined with me by my co-host Tom Kalb in the Radio Access studio. How's it going? It's been a little while.
Everything's good.
Everything's good. Do you feel like we're in summer? I mean, calendar-wise, we're not yet.
Oh, is that right? Because it's the longest day of the year is the beginning of summer?
Yeah, like
is that right?
June 2021, somewhere in there.
So pretty soon the day's going to start getting shorter already? Golly.
Depressing.
Winter's coming already? Oh, my Lord, thanks for depressing me. It's early summer, yep. Because the frost, there's no worry about frost. And crab apples are done blooming. There's no tulips anymore. So spring's over.
There you go.
That's what I say.
What
do you say?
I feel like when school's over, you feel like you really have kicked off summer. So that's over. I feel like we're in summer. Maybe our temperatures recently haven't felt like we're in summer, but I say June, you're in summer.
Yeah, we're in summer. Days are long and
enjoyable.
Yeah, these are the good days.
Last night was wonderful weather-wise. I don't know if you were outside, but holy smokes.
That was so long ago, I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I went to the office. That's what I did.
That's what you did.
Yeah, I'm very, very hardworking. You know, actually, because I'm still working on my seeds project a little bit, so.
People still getting in their gardens.
Planting,
yeah.
So.
How about you? You still planting or never began?
I began. I'm going to just, I've done a lot of Roundup spraying, or should I say glyphosate spraying, not the true Roundup. But I'm preparing for a magnificent garden. Wonderful. Someday that you're going to come and is on a tour.
To your house.
To my house. And it's going to be a glorious garden in Bismarck.
Can't wait. Once they get that road construction done over there.
Oh, I know a way around that. So.
Me too. That's what I've been doing, detouring.
Yeah. Yeah, what are they doing there? Do you know that? On 80th? And I think they're building a gas station there. That's the rumor I heard. But
what?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe just widening the road. With, like, the county running that way in the county shop. Yeah.
I hope that's it. It's kind of a dangerous intersection, but we're kind of...
Yeah, we're getting off
Dakota
topic.
Growing here. How's your garden growing?
You know what? I actually haven't looked at it now in a couple weeks, but I did plant it a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah. My flower beds look great. I did some container gardens. So I got I actually got some glads coming up already. Pretty excited about those.
That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I got some petunias planted. I got some coneflower and bee balm added this year. Planted a few trees recently, too. So, looks good. Makes me happy when I come in my yard and the lawn is mowed and...
Yeah, that is a good feeling when the lawn's mowed. Kind of just everything's tidy.
Yeah.
Kind of. I tell you, my philosophy is that we like it because we like to dominate nature. We like to have our impact on nature. We don't appreciate the beauty of a prairie. You know, they say like, "Wow, you better mow that lawn, man." But anyhow,
I don't appreciate the ticks, so I'll keep her short.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's as we just ramble here. It's been a good spring and summer so far. I mean, we had a roller coaster. We had really warm early in spring. Then it got cold snap.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Are you okay?
A little bit.
Sounds good. And but no late frost really, and we've been getting decent rains, so everything's green. And like you mentioned, mowing the lawn, you have to mow the lawn. And
drought monitor looks a lot better.
It does. Mm-hmm. It does. Actually, I'm going to show that.
Okay.
So we're talking about each other's talks a little bit. So should we get started?
Let's get started.
Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about maples. That's one I'm seeing a lot of problems with maples now in Bismarck, and I just want to talk a little bit about one just alert people about how we need to take care of maples. So my title is Maples Are for Boston, Not for Bismarck. Because
a lot of truth to that.
Because when you think about, when you think about the beauty of maples, it's that fall color, right?
That's what everybody wants.
That's New England. That's not
Bismarck. Not even close.
This picture was not from Bismarck, trust me. And same with this one, the beautiful orange scarlet color and the red maples. But there is a maple that really caught fire, pun intended, just, Autumn Blaze Freeman maple. And this really got going about 20 years ago. And Autumn Blaze, a Freeman maple is a cross between a silver maple and a red maple. It's a hybrid. And so a Freeman maple has the best of both. It has the beautiful red color of a red maple, but also the fast growth of a silver maple. And that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants a big, fast-growing tree and with great fall color. And so that's what Autumn Blaze is all about. So it's probably, it's historic. The last 20 years, it's been by far the most popular maple in the Midwest, and including, you see a lot of them in Bismarck. And so here's again, but the Freeman maple is, the Autumn Blaze Freeman maple's from Ohio. It's not from North Dakota. Here's a North Dakota Freeman maple. So it's a little bit on the yellow side. It's not really made for a prairie soil. And I took this picture yesterday, actually, in Bismarck with a little tree. See how small the leaves are? And you see that this is a iron deficiency, because it's a yellow leaf with green veins. And we're talking about how we've got the wrong soils for maples here.
Right.
So, it's good to dream about that beautiful red maple, but you got to plant the right tree in the right spot.
Be realistic.
Yep. A few weeks ago, a lot of people were noticing this in their maples. It's just some yellow leaves on the ground. We're not exactly sure what caused this, but it was likely some type of an environmental stress. It could have been that cold snap that we had, but
right.
Still, it's just people see that and they all freak out a little bit, like their tree's going to die, but actually it's usually about 5% of the leaves drop, and trees has no stress from that. That's no big deal. And the old saying is like a tree can take at least, it could drop 1/4 of its leaves, especially in the springtime, and it'll come back just fine. So don't worry about it. Here's a close-up of one of the leaves, and it's got some,
little orange bumpies.
Let's see, we'll talk about that. That's another problem with maples, but not a real problem. There's a little bug inside there, living in like an apartment. Okay, so here's a picture. Like I had this from somebody, and this is in Fargo area. Sent me this photo. So one of the trees is doing well, and one of the Freeman maples is not. And so it's hard to say like why is one good and why is one not good. Any ideas? What would you do if somebody sent you this picture?
I would say trees are just like people. We're all uniquely made. We can be the same.
Some are short and some are tall.
That's right.
Some are green and some are yellow.
That's right.
Yeah,
we're all unique.
They're genetically the same.
Yeah.
So then I said, okay, that helps. That's a good picture from the. Let me see the situation.
Get up close, right?
Got to get up close. And so she got up close. And I said, got to see the tree.
Ooh.
So you see that she had some deer rutting on that yellow tree. So that's a problem. Maples have a thin bark, and this reminded me of. Then I started noticing some other maples. And here we are at the state capitol here, and you notice the dying back on the maple there. But you see to the left, those are linden trees. You can tell by the pyramid-shaped lindens. They're dark green, healthy, doing great. Lindens are tough trees. I really have a greater appreciation for lindens in an urban environment than I've ever had, especially when I start looking at the maples around. And again, these are maples that are all dying back right at the state capitol there. This reminded me of, this has been a long-term problem in North Dakota. And you see this in 2012, the foresters in the Fargo area, they said, everybody's planting Freeman maples, but we're having a lot of dying back on them, especially in the winter. So what's going on? And should we pick a different variety? There was a variety out of Minnesota, Sienna Glen, that's hardier. Or I don't know if it's from Minnesota, but it's definitely hardier, a little bit hardier. And so I said, should we just forget about the Autumn Blaze and go with the Sienna Glen? But what they found in this study of the trees in Fargo, so many, like a third of them were having winter injury. They said the biggest problem wasn't the variety of Freeman maple. The biggest problem was the way the people treated their Freeman maple. And specifically, they found damage at the base of the trees. And they said people who didn't mulch their Freeman maples, they're the ones who definitely have a higher incidence of winter injury because the trees are under stress. First of all, you see they're at their base, damage from lawnmowers. When you damage that, the ring of a tree is where the outer ring, just beneath the bark, is where a lot of the water and nutrients flow. And if you scrape that bark, you expose that outer ring and cause it to dry. So this is about 1/3 of that ring is shut down. So that reduces the root's ability to get nutrients. Because the leaves make the nutrients, they got to pump it down to the roots. Well, if you've got the system shut down there at the base, the roots aren't getting the nutrients that they need. And so this was a big problem with lawnmowers and weed whackers. That's one of the biggest problems with maples is they just can't take any type of damage to their trunk. The other thing you see in this particular picture is you see that vertical crack. That's on the southwest side of a tree. That's winter injury. Maples have a thin bark again. They're very sensitive to winter injury, and that's why we need to protect them. That's why we wrap up trees in winter. What happens is on a sunny day in the winter, like in March, let's say it gets like 30 or 40, and the sun beats down on that bark on the southwest side in the afternoon, and the temperature warms up there just beneath the bark, and then the cells break out of their winter slumber and they get active. But then the sun goes down at night, it gets freezing again, and those activated cells freeze up. And when water freezes, it expands, like ice or like a soda in the freezer. It bursts open, and that causes these vertical cracks because the plant cells explode open. So maples, it's very important to put those white tree guards and wrap your tree over winter. So it's the way you take care of maples that make a huge difference, and the one reason why they suffer in Bismarck. There's another gash of a maple. I took a picture yesterday of this. That maple is really suffering. So how do you mulch a tree? The old rule of 3-3-3. The mulch has to be at least 3 feet in diameter, 3 feet wide, 3 inches thick, and you should have no mulch 3 inches near the trunk. Okay? The mulch does a lot of great things for trees. It conserves moisture. It helps choke out weeds. It insulates the soil from extreme temperatures. But the other things, it keeps those darn lawnmowers and weed whackers away. So if you have a maple, any tree, you gotta protect it with some shredded bark mulching. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, or second to the last thing, is soil pH, the potential for hydrogen, the pH. Okay, soil pH, this is important for us in Bismarck. This is why maples thrive in Boston, but they don't thrive in Bismarck. It's our soil pH. Soil pH is measured on a scale of 0 to 14. The lower it is, it's more acidic. 7 is neutral. And 14 is highly alkaline. Okay, the higher it is, the more alkaline it is. And it has to do with the availability of nutrients. So you see, like near the 7 area, you see green is good. That's when that nutrient is available in the soil. And so this is the perfect, is a little bit below 7 is best. Slightly acid, because that's where the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium are readily available to the roots. They can just pump that up so easily. And iron is okay available too. Okay? The problem we have in North Dakota is we don't have slightly acid soil. We have, in the red box, slightly alkaline soil. And so it's still okay. Our soil is still fertile. We can still get the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It's still green there. But you see how the iron becomes more limiting, and maples are very sensitive to that. If we went out to Boston, they would have a medium acid soil. They'd have like a pH of 5 or 6, and the iron is plentiful there, but it's not here. And so if you really want to plant a maple, and especially if you want one of these Freeman maples or a red maple or sugar maple, I really encourage you to find out what your soil pH is. It can vary. It can vary in our state a little bit. And so how do you take a soil test? It's important. So like in your yard, let's say this is my front yard, is that brown area there. I want to get a representation of the overall soil in the yard. So I'm not just going to take a sample from one area of the yard. I'm going to go randomly. I'm going to clean five-gallon bucket. I'm going to get a shovel, and I'm going to take samples, go about 4 to 6 inches deep, and I'm just going to wander around. Like here I'm making a W, and take like 5, 6 samples, and mix that all up, and then put like 1 or 2 cups and mail it out. Now, where do I get my soil test done? The NDSU soil test lab has closed now. Okay, so we can't send it to Fargo anymore. The University of Minnesota is still available, and that does a good job, but universities generally take 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes longer, for the results. So a lot of us are going with what the farmers do, and that's go with AgVice, AgVise, and they'll do a soil test for you. It's going to cost you about $30 for the soil test, but you'll get your results quickly, and it'll be accurate. And I'll have some recommendations for you. And if you have any concerns about what does this soil test report mean, that's what you can contact your local county extension agent, or you can contact me, and I'll be happy to go over it with you and tell you what you should be doing. Okay. So soil test is important. So now, let's say we talked about that 1 to 14 scale. And he's at 7. So like most of us are around 7.2, 7.3, and that's okay. But some of us, we get up to 7.5 or even 7.8 or even 8. If we have a pH of 7.8 or higher, I strongly recommend not to grow a maple, because we can't change that pH. Mother Nature's going to fight the whole way. So what we do to lower pH is we add sulfur to the soil, but it doesn't last long. Okay, you have to regularly apply the sulfur. And maples, if your pH is 7, even if it's 7.5 or higher, and definitely 7.8 or higher, we just can't lower it satisfactorily with anything, even battery acid, you name it. We just can't get the job done. So then forget about maples, or forget about Freeman maples, red maples, sugar maples. That said, there's a couple maples that we can grow here. And, okay, one I didn't even bother showing you. It's a box elder tree. That's a maple, but it's a weed. So forget about that. I don't want to plant a woody weed in my yard with those box elder bugs everywhere. But this is a Tatarian maple. This is called Hot Wings. And to me, this is like the first sign of fall coming. You see those red seed pods. And this can tolerate alkaline soil. So this can grow well here in North Dakota, especially with a pH 7.5 or lower. It's beautiful seed pods. That's one of my favorite trees, a small, low-growing tree. Okay, so that's one last thing with maples. We talked about those little red bumps.
Yeah.
And it's a silver maple. again, silver maple. Silver maples have that yellowing problem. They suffer in our alkaline soils. People like silver maples because they grow fast, but they're not the strongest wood. And if you have a high pH, again, if it's 7.5 or higher, I really would strongly encourage you to reconsider that selection of a silver maple. You see, silver maples do get these red dots on them, and those are maple bladder gall mites. So what happened is in the spring is a little mite bit into that leaf, and that bite caused a hormone reaction and that swelling. So that swelling actually serves as a shell of protection over that mite. So there's a mite living in each one of those red dots, but it's harmless because what's the purpose of a leaf? The purpose of a leaf is to produce the green chlorophyll, the food for the tree. And you see these leaves are loaded with green chlorophyll. So these leaves are still very functional, doing a great job. So don't worry about that. But as far as maples, just think twice about getting a maple tree and get a soil pH done. If you do get a maple tree, please put some mulch around it. Care for it. Love it. Otherwise, it's going to suffer a life of misery. There you go. That's my stock. Do you have anything you want to say about maples? Did I depress you enough?
Yeah. I was going to ask you about the box elder, but you mentioned it. There's
that's
your maple.
Our native maple. Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst. Yes, it's one of the worst trees because of those box elder bugs, and it's weak wooded, and it's kind of all over the place shape. But, you know, the Terry maple, Janella maple, Amur maple, they're okay.
I was going to say Amur.
Yep, they're okay. They're okay. But realize, you know, we have a different soil than the people in Boston.
Yeah.
There you go. So think twice about that. Okay, I got one other thing to talk about.
Let's talk about it.
You asked me to talk more today.
I did in the topic you have.
Okay.
Plenty of calls coming in on this one.
Okay, here we go. So here's one, like you mentioned, the drought status that we have, and here's one of the latest maps, and you can see
look at that.
We're white. That means we have no drought
in a lot better
in Burleigh County, but it's bad in the west. But one, that's great. That's great. We don't have drought here. That's great. And hopefully the rains will come to the southwest. But one drawback about this, when it's wet in the spring, we get more cedar apple rust. And cedar, these red cedars are sometimes called junipers. They have these like wooden galls on them. And when it rains, the galls shoot out these orange tentacles. And then the tentacles shoot out rust spores. And apples and hawthorns, crab apples, they get these rust spores from that. So this looks very severe, and this really concerns a lot of people. But actually, when this is the same tree, you still see it's really green still. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. This tree looks scary to us, but the tree can cope with it. And so I would say, and also once you got it, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, the damage has been done. You can't spray it to there's no cure for it.
I like that you use the word complex.
Okay. It is a little complicated. Because it's got two different types of plants involved.
That's right.
Right? So here's a hawthorn. It also gets the cedar rust disease. So here's the deal with the cedar rust complex. One thing, junipers or red cedars, they're so common because they can tolerate drought and they're tough evergreens. They're everywhere in North Dakota. And the spores can come from a mile or more away. So you just can't stop it, you know? It's just going to be a problem, especially when we have a wet spring. The damage does look dramatic, but it doesn't kill. I've never seen an apple or a crabapple die from it. And we rarely use fungicides in a home landscape for this. You have to, and if we do it in an apple orchard, if there are junipers nearby, but you got to spray before the infection occurs. So even before the flowers come out, you got to start spraying. And one thing we can do is prune the trees in winter so you have better air movement and sunlight, because this is a fungus, And fungus likes humidity in the canopy. So anything we can do to open up the canopy will have the rust of a harder time getting going in our apple trees. So that's what I got. That's just a disease it's coming on now.
I feel like it's a Romeo Juliet love story there, right? You have to kill off one of them to get rid of it totally. But like you said, it comes from like a mile away. So where are you going to find those?
Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah, think about it.
They got it. Yeah, they got to be together. Though.
They got to be together for it to have.
There's no cedar apple rust without a cedar and an apple. They got to be together. Right. But unlike Romeo and Juliet, it's not fatal.
Well, right. I just meant you have to get rid of the other host in order to solve it. Right, because it's a mile away.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah.
So you just
live with it.
Right. Well, there are disease-resistant crabapple trees. The apples, the ones that resist rust, taste terrible. So there really isn't a good choice there.
Pass that one by.
Yeah. So, just be on the lookout for it.
It's out there. Plenty. Yep. Plenty. Okay, let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about the month of May. How about that to start off? Lilacs still blooming?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, there are a few out there. A lot of them I'd say are past that point, but when you thought of the first couple weeks of May, what do you think of? Do you remember it, or were you just busy packing seeds?
And it was, that's when we had our cold snap.
Sunny, the first 2 weeks, sunny.
Or May 14th.
In the 80s and the 90s. My kids were begging to wear shorts.
Mid-April is 90s, I know that.
Yeah, but even May, we had some record highs.
I know, everybody wanted a plant, that's the thing. That was really an issue.
The first sunburns of the season.
I can't
happened.
wait to plant my cucumbers, man. And, just everybody's going nuts on that. And just, be careful, be careful.
They were eager, more than eager.
And the soil was dry.
That's right.
So it warmed up faster.
Yeah. Then May 15th was kind of our turning point.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, the record rainfall continued for several days. I'll be honest, I was over it after a few days. When it just rains. The gravel roads are terrible. Can't be outside.
That's right. See, that's my dirt driveway.
Dirt driveway, yeah. Try like 15 miles of dirt every day, and that's just one way.
Wow. Okay,
and then we had the big scare. It's like, the 16th, people were panicked. The frost was coming. But Bismarck we did make another record that day, but we only got to 43 as a low.
That's the coldest? 43?
Yeah.
Well, that's not cold.
Yeah, so we didn't have to worry about the frostiness around here.
No rhubarb got frosted.
No, it was all good. People took precautions, but it was all good. So, with that rain came our friend just like last year, anthracnose. Tell you what, the last couple weeks, like Chicken Little and said the sky was falling. Right? That was Chicken Little who said that. It was the leaves were falling in masses all over. So, ash tree leaves, get pictures like this, showing just piles, people showing their yards. If you see on that right photo,
it's like,
sparse, just covers the ground, and people were in panic. The other thing that they were in panic about is because the leaves were falling, and last year with emerald ash borer being discovered, that's where their mind went to right away. So, how do we tell anthracnose? Well, first couple signs is that, yes, those leaflets will fall. You can see some brown leaf margins, even curled a little bit in this photo that you see. You can also see little brown dots on the leaf surface. So earlier this spring, there was like some feeding from ash plant bugs. And basically that was fungal spores just kind of landed on it at the perfect time going on there. So this is kind of the telltale of anthracnose. So what to do? Nothing. Just relax on the panicking.
Really?
Yeah. Sky's not falling.
Relief.
It is a relief, right?
It will relieve.
Oh, will relief. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What a relief. I like that. No need for fungicides. If it has a very excessively thin crown, you could consider fertilizing. You'd have to have this several years of consecutive major defoliation to start and stress the tree to even consider that. So I know we talked about it last week on our weekly call, but do you want to tell people more of like what we would see with emerald ash borer versus anthracnose?
Well, the thing about anthracnose, again, anthracnose is a fungus. It likes shade and humidity.
And all that
so
rain.
If I'm looking at an ash tree from a distance, I'm going to see, for anthracnose, you'll see it'll be thin in the lower branches where it's shady and in the inside of the tree. But on the top of the tree, it'll look beautiful. It'll have a beautiful crown of green leaves on top where it gets lots of sun and air movement. So that's anthracnose. Emerald ash borer is opposite. Emerald ash borer, it destroys the veins of the tree, and so the top of the tree can't get water. So the top of the tree will die back. So if the top of the tree's dying, now I'm worried about borers.
Right.
But with anthracnose, the top of the tree looks the healthiest. So you just got to take a step back and look at the whole tree. And also just, emerald ash borer has not been detected in Bismarck Mandan.
Nope.
And so don't overly panic about that. So that's the big thing.
Right.
Yeah, don't worry about anthracnose. Don't worry, the tree's going to be fine. Trees have had anthracnose. Like you said, it was your friend last year.
It was, yeah.
It gets it often, and trees survive this because, like you say, they can refoliate. It's not a killer.
No, not at all.
So,
the next thing I've been seeing quite a bit already in the landscape, and even within like some of the site visits I've done, is scale. I see pine needle scale every year, so you see this on a spruce tree here, but our viewers, if you look nice and closely, those needles are covered with, they look like little white spots all over them. Yeah. So you get the spots on the needles. Needles can start turning yellow and fall off. What happens here is the eggs are laid in the fall and they overwinter beneath their dead mother, the scale, and then they start to hatch mid to late May. Those crawlers are active at that time, and they go and they feed on the new needles where they form their shell. So as far as what to do with this, it's best to have a systemic and a crawler spray. So I listed some different options there for your crawler stage. That timing is really hard. I know you're the one who's always said it kind of loosely correlates when our lilacs are blooming, correct?
Yeah.
So we're probably getting a little bit past that point.
Look for the crawlers.
Yeah.
You got to, they're little tiny translucent things, and you got to get out. Maybe get a hand lens or your reading glasses, and look carefully for those crawlers. If you see them, then you can consider spraying.
Right.
But if they're not there, well, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can always use a systemic, and that's going to be applied at the base of your tree. And
like a soil drench you're talking about?
Yep.
That'll take about a couple weeks for it to get in the system.
Yep.
Have to be a little bit careful as a precaution with spruce trees. They can kind of lose their bluishness with some of these oil sprays. And make sure, like you said, like a horticultural oil, not a dormant oil.
Right.
Because the tree's not dormant anymore. And again, it's don't usually see that much severe damage on them. Sometimes,
Yeah, some cases.
Sometimes, but I rarely see it dying from a scale.
Right.
But, it's those little white dots cause a lot of concern.
The other one that I've seen is the pine tortoise scale. So, like just the example, a gentleman did come in and he showed me some pictures of his pine trees, and yes, they were very off-colored, very pale, thin, and then you could see that sooty mold, which just looks like black on the branches and stuff. So then going to the site and looking at it, oh man, I could just see the clusters of the pine tortoise scale all over on his branches. So again, it's interesting. Like, of course, you don't know what you don't know. And for clients out there, this is really hard to say, yes, this is an insect, you know, because they're just brown and they're in clusters and you got to get close up to see them. So this one lives through the winter as like fertilized females on branches. So you see them at those, basically the connections and stuff. They'll grow and then they start to lay their eggs in the spring. And so tiny crawlers on this one appear in late June to early July. And then they begin feeding on the needles. So treatment is very similar. Again, horticultural oils can be applied in the late fall and early spring. And then you can also use that systemic in the spring to combat this one. So
right. One thing with scales, sometimes you notice this, they when they suck, they drip out. So it gets like sticky. And you see that's one of the ways that people sense it first, is that all that stickiness nearby from their honeydew, and that leads to that mold, that sooty mold, that blackish mold developing. So yeah, they're kind of tricky to control.
Yeah, I remember it was like a couple years ago I had talked with you too on some, I believe they were pine trees, but the guy had described them as looking like they were torched, and they were so full of the sooty mold on them and had scale all over. So that was kind of a extreme case. Yeah. Yeah,
and there's cottony scale, cottony maple scale. I didn't even talk about that. Another problem with maples. A lot of maple problems. But that's another type of scale that's a little tricky. But it's the same treatment that you talked about, though. You got to somehow, like a systemic approach can help. But the crawlers, they're vulnerable stage, and that's where you can blast them.
Get rid of them.
Knock them down.
All right, the next thing, got to talk about the elm seed pods. It's all over. So what's interesting, I will just say, I have a contact over in Mandan that prior to calls coming into the office and stuff, he had reached out one day and he goes, man, have you been noticing the elm trees? And I said, no, I guess I haven't been paying much attention. And so he's like, there's all, like, they're browning, they look like they're dying and stuff and everything. He goes, I'm going to go take a couple of pictures and send them your way and everything. So upon closer inspection, again, you can look up in that canopy and see like those brown areas, but they are just loaded with seed pods this year. Right. Not really a rhyme or reason that we talked about. I don't
just
believe.
The right environmental conditions for seed production. And like Siberian elms especially really loaded. Yeah.
And so what to know is like these seeds could stay on till like July. Elms are going to be a spring producer of their seeds, so that's why we see all the seeds. And then they are going to drop off, so the crowns this year could look a little thin. But overall, you don't need to worry. It's not...
Nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it. It's not the tree signaling it's dying or in stress because it's doing all this seed production or anything like that, so...
Right. Yeah, but, the tree is spending a lot of energy on the seeds.
Right.
So as you say, the leaves maybe a little bit sparser this year. But I think trees go through this process like every 7 years or so. They have an explosion. And there's ties with how this helps wildlife, too. It's part of the balance of nature. But, yeah, it's interesting. It's concerning.
Would you, as a homeowner, like when the seeds drop, would you go rake those up, worrying about volunteers coming up then?
Well, if I got nothing else to do.
Right. I'm just saying, elm trees are very good at repopulating. Yeah. I wouldn't do it in like tree rows, but
yeah, you know how many seeds we're talking about. You're not going to get them. I wouldn't, but if you want to, it wouldn't hurt to do it.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't. Most of them aren't going to germinate, especially if it's under. I have a lawn. The lawn's going to compete with those seed pods. So
Yeah.
it's up to you. I wouldn't bother. I think I
Got
can
better
find
things
something else
to do, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, last thing I want to talk about with the rains, the
Oh,
mushrooms in the lawn. Been getting any of these?
No,
No. Okay.
I haven't seen any.
Okay,
Just
got
on trees.
Yeah, I got a couple that came in within the last couple weeks here too. Just people saying they got high populations of the mushrooms in the lawn and everything. So just to know, like, as far as treatment and stuff, they are often seen after those periods of wet weather. They're decomposing organic matter in the lawn, whether that's old roots.
Right.
It could be a lot of different things
Yep.
that they're decomposing. Lumber.
Buried lumber, that is.
Yep, any of that. There's no fungicide to go out there and worry about spraying them or anything like that. We just simply say rake them out of the lawn. Just rake them out if they bother you that bad.
You can't stop it.
No.
The wood,
That's
the
nature.
old roots want to decompose. So you just got to wait till they decompose.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a long wait,
Yeah.
like 10 years.
There you go.
So that's just the way it is. So don't worry about it.
Just go rake
just
them out.
Don't eat them.
That's right.
That's the whole key.
Don't eat them.
Just leave them alone.
We're not foraging for mushrooms
We're
in our
not-
lawn.
Yeah, that's right. Never eat a mushroom unless you're 100% sure what it is. And don't bother calling me. I will never identify a mushroom because
That's right.
no mushroom is worth your life.
No, not at all.
No.
Those are my hot topics
the
for
hot
today.
topics?
Those were my
Those wet
speed.
topics?
Yeah, my speed topics from seeing the rain.
Diseases, mushrooms,
Yeah.
yellow maples, a lot of things. How come nobody calls us with good information? Like, wow, look how beautiful my zucchini looks this year.
That would be good. That'd be a good call, huh? But then you'd be like, all right, what do you call me?
Yeah,
to
why are
tell
you bothering me for this? I got so many problems to deal
That's
with in
right.
the community. Yeah, but these are. We didn't talk about anything really
Detrimental.
catastrophic.
Nope.
So I'm seeing some elm seeds. Okay. Don't worry, be happy. Okay, I see what else. I got some anthracnose. Don't worry, be happy. Tree's gonna be fine.
That's right.
Got enjoy the weather. It's beautiful weather. You got some
Be
rain.
outside.
Yeah, it's a great year so far. It's not winter. A lot of great things happening right now.
I agree. Got any last words of
Well,
wisdom
let's think
today?
about what other thing we talk about.
Well, I will say I got herbicide injury that came in on a potato Friday when I was gone. I know we've talked about that in past
Yeah, be
topics.
careful about, yep.
This situation was planted in a corral that they had cattle in for years. They worked up the corral and then planted potatoes in there, and they all had signs of herbicide injury going on. She told me her past tomatoes had that in a different spot. Well, we found the answer on that came from some compost from the city landfill.
Yeah.
So just been a little bit of a struggle for that lady specifically.
That's a big struggle because
Yeah.
those chemicals like in the potatoes, like if that came from manure,
Right.
the manure is produced by the cow eating contaminated straw or hay that was sprayed by a
Pasture.
very persistent herbicide, and those herbicides can persist for years. For a few years, so that's a problem. So that's a warning about using that compost from the Bismarck, the Burley County dump. Is it can be contaminated with persistent pesticide because the grass clippings that are dumped off there for composting, they're not screened for herbicide, and people use very persistent herbicides now, and so that's a big problem. So. Yeah, but as far as what else I would say, like lawns are healthy, they're growing, they're green, keep mowing on a regular basis. Mow tall now, the taller the better. Tall turf will keep the soil cooler because it'll shade the soil. Keep it, you're more at I would say the highest height you can tolerate. We generally recommend fertilizing lawns around Memorial Day, so we're just a little bit past that. If you didn't fertilize, you could probably do that. As long as the rains keep coming. What else is going on? Yeah, keep deadheading your flowers and stuff after they're done blooming. Spend some time in your garden, just like that's the best thing you can do if you have a garden. Spend time in it so that you can watch your plants and get the bugs before they take over. So, spend some moments in your garden and enjoy it while we have it.
That's right.
I guess that's about all the wisdom I have.
Yeah.
It's not much, but that's what I got. I don't know if you've got any last words.
No, I would just say to anybody out there listening, of course, you can listen to us on all major platforms for podcasting.
Dakota Growing.
Dakota Growing. You can find us on dakotamediaaccess.org as well. freetv.com.
.org.
.org?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. freetv.org.
Yeah.
Okay. Got to get that right?
That's it. I can remember that one.
Yeah. Okay, well, with that, I would just say thank you for joining us on today's Dakota Growing episode. We will be going regular now with our growing season, and we hope to have you on future episodes and that you're joining us.
Dakota Growing is a gardening show brought to you by Dakota Media Access and NDSU Extension. We discuss a variety of timely topics pertaining to your landscape, along with giving you tips and advice for your lawn, garden, and trees. If you have questions, call 701-221-6865 or email ndsu.burley.extension@ndsu.com. Dakota Growing airs on Radio Access 102.5 FM, Community Access Channel 12 or 612 HD, or online at freetv.org.